Higher fuel costs and electricity prices in Europe, I think, have been the key to lesser consumption. Now, how do we change behavior patterns? A study was done and presented by the World Bank in which it was shown that if 40 million SUVs, which are the rage in the US, are converted to energy-efficient vehicles, it would provide electricity to 1.6 billion people across the world who do not have electricity. Now, this 1.6 billion is also the figure of people who do not have electricity in the world. So this is one little example of how, if we change the way we live, we can possibly find solutions. Crises shake up societies, crises present problems, but crises also show us that the way we are functioning is not sustainable. They enable us to analyze, to think, find better solutions to the way we live, provide deeper insights into the problems that face us, and also show us the way forward, in this particular case, for sustainable development. Another problem that we have before us today is it's very clear that we are not spending enough on energy, research, development, and deployment. To give you an example, a global subsidy on petroleum products is said to be about $150 billion annually. And on public energy, RD&D, that is research, development, and deployment, it is only $10 billion annually, as against $150 billion. Now, private spending on energy RD&D is about $40 billion to $60 billion annually, and is about 0.5% of the private sector revenues, only 0.5%. And this is against 8% in the telecom sector and 15% in the pharma sector. It's quite an insight. Now, it is, to me, the answer is very clear. Companies tend to put research and development investment where it will be proportionate to the profits and the demand for the commodity. Telecom has had huge demand. Pharma, because of healthcare, has had huge demand and huge profits. And also probably the IPR to some extent in the pharma. But energy use and deployment has more or less been constant for the last 20, 30 years, just fossil fuel dominated. We've not changed as telecom has changed from landlines to airwaves. And here is the opportunity, I think, for the energy sector and government policy and governance to say that henceforth energy will be only produced more efficiently. It will be produced by renewables as far as possible, and it should have as least emissions progressively as we prescribe. This problem and this sector cannot be left to market forces to find the solutions. This is a clear area where governance and public policy has to intervene and intervene effectively, not only through governments, elected governments, but also through the vast plethora of regulators that dot the countrysides in this sector. A very clear and bold directive has to come from there, more particularly in the developed world, which has to immediately get down to reducing its energy use and emissions almost as fast as 50% in the immediate foreseeable future. Now, if we do not act now, what is going to happen. Some studies have shown that climate change has two aspects. One is mitigation, expense, and the other is adaptation. And if we do not act for the next 10 years, the cost of mitigation is going to be doubled. Secondly, if we do not deploy the right kind of technology today for energy production, this investment could become a bad investment for the 25 or 30-year life cycle of those plants. So there is great need, number one, first, straight away go for energy efficiency. Take the best technologies that are available today for better ways of energy production. Work on carbon capture and safe storage, not just storage and dumping away your problem under the carpet. And thirdly, develop new technologies. Now the question comes of funding these new technologies, particularly in those countries where 90% of the demand is going to come in the next 20 years, and they are the poor countries. I think even the World Bank study is now acknowledging that there is no way out except that the developed countries must contribute at least the incremental cost of new energy deployment, better energy deployment in the developing world. Now, these are some of the areas I thought we would be working on today. As far as funding is concerned, while funding is inadequate, it is hugely scattered in this area. It is estimated in a global study that there are at least 20 bilateral or multilateral funds for climate change. Now, these need to be cut down drastically. The transaction cost will come down and there'll be greater clarity in governance. This clearly is a case of misgovernance. CDM has proved to be a very good exercise for technology transfer, for capacity building, and also for reduction of emissions. I think, personally, there is no case for removal of CDM. It must not only continue, but be strengthened further. CDM and carbon pricing through cap and trade, I think, are two market mechanisms that we can introduce to bring about sustainable fund flow for the ultimate deployment of funds. One sector I think I will mention before I close, because industry will be covered by Bruno, is transport. It has been estimated that according to current trends, 2.3 billion cars will be added between 2005 and 2050. And 80% of these will be coming in the developing world. So the need is that we encourage efficient and comfortable mass public transport, no cattle class travel. I think urban metro transport is a must. Better planning so that people don't have to traverse large distances. And along with it, better construction techniques, along with better architecture and planning of houses so that they're energy efficient and not dark, as some rooms in the most lavish hotels are. I think with these words, I'll request